If your task list feels messy, outdated, or impossible to manage, you're not bad at Excel. You're just using it wrong. In this video, we're building a smart task and project dashboard that tracks progress, deadlines, and project status automatically without messy sheets or manual updates. Let me quickly show you what we're building so you understand how everything fits together. Section 1. What we're building. This entire system is built on 4 sheets. First, a task form. This is where you enter tasks. Second, a task database. This is the engine where the information from the task form is automatically filled in. Third, a project chart sheet. This is where we store our project charts with its pivot tables. And fourth, and the most important sheet, are the project dashboard. This lets you zoom into one project and see everything instantly. Once you understand this structure, the rest becomes simple. Section 2. Curate the task entry form. Let's first create a new sheet called task form. This sheet is meant to add tasks in a standard format. Let's start with giving our form a title and give it a green background color. Now let's make the text white and bold. Then insert the following fields: creation date, project name, task name, description, priority, due date, days estimated. Next, let's insert one column left and change the width to 4. Do this at the other side of the table as well. Next, let's give our form a gray background and give our input fields a white color. Let's also add a bottom border in dark green. Adjust the height of the description input field. Next, let's add a drop-down list for the priority. A drop-down list prevents errors and keeps your data clean. Click on the input field of priority, navigate to data, and select data validation. In the allow drop-down, select list, and in the source type low, medium, high, and critical, all separated by commas or semicolon, and click OK. Now, let's autofill the creation date with today's date by using the today's function. This will make filling in the form a lot quicker. Section 3. Build the task database. Next, let's prepare our task database. Create a new sheet and name it task database. In row 1, add these columns: creation date, project name, task name, description, priority, due date, days estimated, status, start date, days actual, completion date, and due status. Now, here's an important step most people skip. Click on one of the cells, press Ctrl T, and turn this into a table. Don't forget to select My Table has headers. Rename the table to Task Table. Let's change the design of our table. Section 4. Connect the form to the database. Great job! Now it's time to connect the form to the database. We'll be using Office Script to transfer the data from our form to our dashboard. Let's go back to our task form and fill it in. Great job! Now we're ready to record our Office script that will copy the data from our form to our database. Let's navigate to the Automate tab, click Record Actions or Record from Recording. After clicking it, you will see the record actions in the pane on the right. Every action you now take will be recorded. I will now copy all the information from my task form and paste it into my database. After copying all the fields from my task form, I will insert a row so that there is an empty row available to enter new data. I will also reset the form by deleting all the data except the today's date. Now, you will see all these actions recorded in the right pane. Now, stop the recording. You can view the code by clicking on Edit. Now, let's rename the script to Copy Data to Database. Let's test our script. Great, it works. Let's now focus on the calculated columns. Section 5, calculated columns. We want to autocomplete the status based on the start date and completion date. We're going to use the following formula. What this means is if the completion date cell is not empty, it should show completed. If the start date is filled in, but the completion date is blank, it should show in progress. The last part means if the start date and completion date are not filled in, it should show not started. Next, we'll set up the logic that tells us whether a task is due soon or already overdue. We're going to use this big formula. Let me explain this formula. The very first thing the formula checks is simple. It checks whether we have a due date. If there's no due date, the formula returns nothing. There's nothing meaningful to evaluate yet. Next, we ask the most important question. Has the task been completed? The formula checks if the completion date was filled in. If it was, the task is done. But we also want to find out if the task was completed on time or late. We do this by comparing the completion date to the due date. If the task was completed on or before the due date, it's labeled completed on time. If it was completed after the due date, it's labeled completed late. Now, if the task has not been completed, we want to know if we will meet our deadline or if the task is already overdue. First, we check whether the due date is already in the past by comparing the today's date with the due date. If it is, the task is ongoing overdue. If it's not overdue, we check whether the due date is within the next 3 days. If it is, we flag it as ongoing due soon. If none of those conditions are true, meaning the task isn't overdue and isn't close to the deadline, then the task is simply ongoing on track. Now let me fill in some data to check whether our formulas work. You now see that everything is ongoing because the completion date has not been filled in yet. Let me add the start and completion date and see what happens. You now see that the due status has changed. Now let's take a step back and think about what we built so far. We haven't created a single chart. We haven't even built a dashboard yet, but we've done something far more important. We built a task engine because dashboards should never be where you do work. Dashboard should only be where you see the results of the work. And now that our engine is running, we can finally build the visual layer on top of it. Now let's create a new sheet called Project Charts. Navigate to Insert and select Pivot Chart. In the range, type Task Table, which is the name of our table. Now let's explore the Pivot Chart fields. On the right hand side, you'll see all the headers from our source data. Below them are 4 areas: Filters, Legend Series, Axis Categories, and Values. This is the area where you decide how your chart is built. For each project, we want to know the following: total tasks, total completed tasks, total in progress tasks, and total tasks that we have not yet started. To accomplish this, drag the project name into the Axis area. Now for counting the total completed, in progress, or not started tasks, we need to approach it differently. Pivot tables are great at summarizing numbers, but they work best with numbers, not text. Status values like completed, in progress, not started are text, not numbers. So if you ask Excel, how many tasks are completed, Excel can sum the word completed. It needs a number, like 1 for yes and 0 for no. So how do we solve this? We create helper columns that convert text into numbers. Step 1. Helper columns. In the task database, create 3 new columns. Name the columns as follows: completed flag, in progress flag, and not started flag. For the completed flag column, type the following formula. If the status equals completed, meaning the task is completed, we return 1. If it's anything else, we return 0. Let's repeat the formula for the other statuses. Now each column converts a status into a number that Excel can work with. Step 2. Creating the pivot table. Now let's head back to our project chart sheet and refresh our data. Now drag the fields from our helper columns that we have just created into the values area. In our values area, make sure everything is set to sum. If it hasn't been set to sum, you can do this by right-clicking and selecting Field Settings, then selecting Sum in the Summarize By tab. Now, let's rename the field name to Completed Task and repeat these steps for the remaining flags. This sheet answers one question perfectly. How are my projects doing at a glance? And this is what managers care about. Step 3. Improve the visual. Now let's improve the visual. Click on the chart, then right-click and change the chart type and select the 2D bar stack bar. Next, let's filter the blank out and add a title above the chart by selecting the chart, then navigating to Design and select Add Chart Element. then chart title and select above chart. Now rename it to Projects Overview. Now let's add data labels by clicking on the chart and navigating to the Design tab. Click on Add Chart Element and select Data Labels inside End. Now let's make it more visible by changing the design. Great, it's looking good. Next, let's remove the vertical lines. Great job! This chart now shows how many tasks in each project are completed, in progress, or not started yet. Section 2, Project Deep Dive. Step 1. Now let's zoom in. We now have an overall view, but sometimes we also want to zoom in the deliverables per project. So let's insert a pivot table by navigating to the Insert tab and selecting Pivot Table. In the table range, type Tasks Table. Next, drag the following field names to the rows area. Project name, task name, description, priority, due date, status, and due status. Next, click on the pivot table and navigate to Design. Select Report Layout and Show in Tabular Form. Let's also remove the subtotals and grand totals. Let me also adjust the column widths and filter out the blank. Next, let's insert a pivot chart to visualize the tasks and associated status, but this time per project. Navigate to Insert, select Insert Pivot Chart. Next, type in Tasks Table in the table range and drag the project name to the Filters area. Next, drag the different flags fields to the Values area and rename it to the associated status. Let's remove the horizontal lines and remove the total text. Great! Let's add some data labels by clicking on the chart and navigate to Design and select Add Chart Element, select Data Labels, and select More Data Options. Section 3, the Project Dashboard. We now have every element we need to create our project dashboard. So let's create a new Excel sheet and call it Project Dashboard. This sheet will only include all of our charts and a table containing all the required information. But first, let's remove the grid lines by navigating to the View tab and deselect Grid Lines. Now copy and paste the charts of our project chart sheet and paste it into our new sheet. Next, let's add the pivot chart that is specific per project. And finally, let's add our pivot table that contains all the details of the tasks. Section 4, Slicers. Now let's make our dashboard more interactive by adding a slicer. But let's first go back to our project chart sheet to deselect the blank. Select our project-specific chart and go to Insert Slicer and add a slicer for project name. Before proceeding, let's change the layout of our slicer. Click on the Slicer menu and select 5 columns. Resize it and place it on top of our chart. Now let's connect this pivot chart with our data table. Right-click on the Slicer menu and select Report Connections. Next, select the pivot table we want to connect and click OK. Now we can filter our projects in real time. Great job! Now you've built more than just an Excel file. You've created a fully automatic task and project dashboard, one that tracks progress, visualizes workload, and now you can see how each project is performing, what's completed, in progress, or falling behind, and drill down into task level details instantly. If this video helped you build a smarter workflow, leave a like, it helps the channel a lot. And if you want more tutorials on Excel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.